Hey everyone. Well, I wanted to pick up. So in my last video, I was sharing a little bit of just some big pictures about integration, um, sharing that integration is this desire to seek out wholeness, to create unity. And then I talked about special revelation versus general revelation, where general revelation is the ability for all of us to look around at the world and to observe things and to take in some knowledge from the world. And so certainly God has equipped us with that ability, and there seems to be a purpose in that. And then special revelation is this idea that there's some unique knowledge that comes only from certain sources, and those sources are not general to and available to all people, but are actually limited in their scope. And so, an example would be of Scripture or of prophetic prophecies made within the church, things like that. And so, today or right now, I'd like to share just a few terms that um, I want you to be familiar with. So these are terms that we're not necessarily going to be some of them we'll be diving into quite a bit later on in the course, but there's a few others I just want you to be aware of and familiar with. And so I'll run through these fairly quickly, and but hopefully I'll um, put it out there so you can absorb it a little bit, and so that you have a better sense of it when you hear it in the future. So I guess the first term that I wanted to define is anthropology. So when we're studying psychology, we are studying a particular part of anthropology. If you think of anthropology as an umbrella, psychology is one of those wires of the umbrella. It's not the whole picture, but it's a part. And so anthropology is the study of man or the study of humanity. And the idea is that everything about the nature of humanity, of what it means to be a human being, is within the purview of anthropology. So that would include our biological nature, our social nature, of course, our psychological nature, the nature of our behavior, and the ways that we think, and a few others, right? So the nature of our spirituality, and of culture, of trying to think of others, but those are the major ones. And so anthropology is really trying to understand the fullness of what it means to be human. So certainly psychology has something to say there, but we also would say that Christianity would have something to say as well. And so that the nature of humanity is one of those areas where we can have some integration. The next term is um, epistemology, and I mentioned this in class last week, and or on Tuesday. And epistemology is the knowledge of the study of knowledge, right? Of course, all the ologies are the study of. You've probably heard that before. The ology actually technically means word, but it's the nature of it is used in the context to say, okay, this is how we study it. This is the meaning, the word or the representation of this topic. And epistemology is episte is knowledge, so it's a study of knowledge. And how do we know what we know? We have a lot of opinions, we have a lot of things that we believe, but how do we actually come to know things, right? Um, and that's a interesting philosophical, psychological, and spiritual question. Um, this idea, and I've already hinted at it with the idea of general knowledge and special knowledge or revelation, and so certainly psychology has something to say about how we come to grips with knowledge. I teach actually one of the classes I teach is the psychology of learning, and we talk about things at a really molecular level, not in the sense of actual molecules, but narrowing down to a specific element of the way that we learn. So you probably all know about classical conditioning. Classical conditioning is this idea that sometimes we come to know something through a process of conditioning where a certain reflexive response can be compared with a neutral stimulus, an unconditioned stimulus. And we can change our behavior and we can know something through that. And so that's making a claim about our epistemology, our ability to know. And so again, this is an area where integration can occur to consider, well, is that the wholeness of our knowledge? Is it only based in personal experience? Or, Christianity might claim that some knowledge can come outside of our personal experience and that some knowledge can come through, again, divine revelation. Okay, third term, ontology. This one I just want you to hear out. I won't say too much about. Ontology is really just the study of the nature of being, of the material world around us. What is it? What is nature? What is the physical world? And how is it created? Now, psychology doesn't say a lot about this. That's why I'm not going to say too much about it. But psychology is presumed on some ontological foundations. So it assumes that we are, material in the sense of we're fixed, that the world is in progress, that there's molecules and atoms that are flying around the world, and we're just set in motion, and everything's going to continue in motion, including the neurons in our head, and we're simply going to continue to change and adapt, but that change and adaptation is entirely determined by the fact that the world's molecules and atoms have been in motion and are just going to continue to be in motion. So psychology kind of assumes that worldview, and a Christian ontological view would be different from that. That it would see God's divine action as potentially occurring, and so miracles and things that are outside the realms of the typical physical world can occur. All right, and so the fourth term would be theology. Theology is the study of God, of ultimate reality, of religion, including the relationship with God's relationship with people, and God's and the spiritual ethics that result from who God is. So this is one where obviously Christian faith speaks to quite a bit, but I've found that there's places for integration with theology. I'll share more about this later, but I feel like psychology has taught me about in particular the ethics that result, because I realize that sin is sometimes occurs, or is at least shaped by factors outside of a person's control. So when I think about the ethics that result from theology, I think, oh, God has created the world so that some of our behaviors are shaped by things outside of our control. And I think there's something about my view of ethics that has been shaped by psychology, because I feel like psychology has revealed, we're shaped by our social relationships. We're shaped by our relationship with the world around us. And I think that my view of God as relational, as a Trinity, helps me appreciate the fact that God has created humanity as relational, and that He has created us to be, again, influenced by one another, so that we're not just isolated from one another, we're actually in relationship. And so that's theology is, of course, another area of integration. And then finally, teleology. This is Teleology. Teleology is the study of purpose and design. So when we talk about teleology, it's hard to pronounce. We're talking about what is our purpose, what is our goal, our where are we going, what's our end point in regards to our life. So sciences don't really speak much to teleology, and so I think that it's actually a place where Christianity can speak more into. The fact is that psychology doesn't kind of assumes that our end point is, freedom from mental illness, and that we'll have happiness and satisfaction. But overall, it doesn't really say much about what our life should be like. And Christianity says our life should be holy, our life should be lived in relationship with Christ, and that our life should be Christ-like. And so I think that this is one of those areas where Christianity potentially says, okay, to psychology, well, here's psychology teaches us about the nature of humanity, but Christianity says, well, this is what humanity should be like, and that should element is an important one. And so, okay, so 5 terms: anthropology, epistemology, ontology, theology, and teleology. So I just wanted you guys to be a little bit more familiar with those so that they're not as intimidating, or at least at the very least that you're just have a little bit more of an ear for them. I know that it's kind of a lot to take in all at once, but hopefully you took some notes and have that to check in with. So I will end there, and I will pick up and we can talk a little bit more about the nature of integration again. Okay.